आज की इस मीटिंग को चेयर करने के लिए इनवाइट करती हूँ। नीचे आप लोगों ने एग्जीबिशन देखी होगी जो पैलेस्टाइन के लोगों ने पेंटिंग्स की थी, उसकी एग्जीबिशन। और इस मीटिंग को शुरू करने के पहले और सईद जी को माइक देने के पहले विनीत एक पैलेस्टाइन पोएटिस की छोटी सी कविता आपको सुनाएंगे।
कविता, one poem of a Palestinian poet. I translated it from English. This is a poem of Lisa Suhair Majaz. Lisa Suhair Majaz is a Palestinian American poetess, and I translated it long back, around 8 years back, but it is very relevant today also. There is a saying in Arabic, "Kan ya ma kan," which means once upon a time. एक बार की बात थी. So the poem's title is What She Said. वो हिंदी में है. मैं I am sorry for those who don't know हिंदी. फिलिस्तीन में उनके लिए बर्फबारी के मौसम नहीं होते, उनके यहाँ फौजी घुसपैठ के दिन होते हैं. उसने कहा, ठीक है, जाओ बाहर खेलो अपने बच्चे से, लेकिन बॉल फौजियों के पास मत फेंकना. जब कोई जीप वहां से गुजरे तो अपनी नजरें जमीन में गड़ाए रखना और पत्थर हरगिज मत उठाना, लंगड़ी खेलने के लिए भी नहीं. वो बोली कि पड़ोसियों को बिल्कुल परेशान मत करना, उनके बेटे को कल रात ही वे गिरफ्तार करके ले गए हैं. कपड़े टांग दो, बिस्तर बना दो, इससे पहले कि सिपाही देख लें दीवारों पर लिखा हुआ हर हर्फ, हर चित्र मिटा दो. वो बोली, हमारे पास बिल्कुल पैसे नहीं हैं, अगर तुम्हारे जूते छोटे हो गए हैं तो अपने पैर काट कर उन्हें जूतों के नाप का बना लो. हमारे पास खाने के लिए सिर्फ यही बचा है, अब हम कल तक दोबारा कुछ भी नहीं खाएंगे. नहीं, हमारे पास संतरे नहीं हैं, उन्होंने संतरे के सारे पेड़ काट डाले. क्यों? मुझे नहीं पता. मुमकिन है संतरे के पेड़ उनके टैंकों के लिए खतरा हो. खैर, तब तक टॉयलेट में पानी मत डालना, यहाँ बिल्कुल पानी नहीं है, अब हम अगले हफ्ते नहाएंगे इंशाअल्लाह, अगर खुदा ने चाहा तो. और सुनो, जैतून के बगीचे के नज़दीक भी मत जाना, वहाँ कुछ लोगों ने डेरा डाला हुआ है जिनके पास बंदूकें हैं. मुझे नहीं पता कि हम कैसे जैतून की फसल काटेंगे, और मुझे ये भी नहीं पता कि हम क्या करेंगे अगर वो हमारे जैतून के पेड़ों को गिरा ही डालें तो. खुदा देगा अगर वो चाहेगा तो, या फिर संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ की राहत कार्य एजेंसी कुछ दे दे तो दे दे, लेकिन ये अमरीकी हरगिज नहीं देंगे. उसने कहा, तुम आज बाहर नहीं निकल सकते बच्चे, आज कर्फ्यू है, उन खिड़कियों से दूर रहो. क्या तुम्हें गोलियां चलने की आवाज़ सुनाई नहीं दे रही? नहीं, मुझे नहीं पता कि क्यों उन्होंने पड़ोसी का घर ढहा दिया, और अगर खुदा को पता है तो वो बता नहीं रहा. वो बोली, आज स्कूलों की छुट्टी है क्योंकि ये एक फौजी हमला है. मुझे नहीं पता ये कब खत्म होगा या कभी खत्म होगा भी कि नहीं. उसने कहा, टैंकों के बारे में मत सोचो, या बंदूकों या हवाई जहाज़ों के बारे में भी मत सोचो, और मत सोचो कि पड़ोसियों के साथ क्या हुआ. यहाँ घर के बीच के हिस्से में आ जाओ, यहाँ थोड़ा ज़्यादा महफूज हैं, और समाचार सुनना बंद कर दो. तुम ऐसी खबरों के लिए अभी काफ़ी छोटे हो. सुनो, मैं तुम्हें एक कहानी सुनाती हूँ जिससे तुम डरोगे नहीं. कान या माँ कान, एक बार की बात है. एक जगह थी, या एक जगह जो नहीं थी, उसका नाम फ़लस्तीन था, जहाँ बच्चे खेला करते थे, गलियों, मैदानों और बागीचों में और पेड़ों से तोड़कर खूबानियाँ और बादाम खाया करते थे और अपनी माँओं के लिए चमेली के फूलों की मालाएं बनाया करते थे। और जब उनके सिरों के ऊपर से हवाई जहाज उड़ते थे तो वे खुश होकर किलकते थे और हाथ हिलाकर उन्हें टाटा करते थे। कान या माँ कान, एक बार की बात है, अपना सर नीचे झुकाए रखो। शुक्रिया। You have to now not a speaker,
Respected my very beloved Naqvi, Comrade Naqvi, comrades and friends. It's a very important meeting. I'm happy to see two comrades from Communist Party of China are present. They got introduced to me as they are from Communist Party of China, and I am also equally happy to have one comrade from Palestine embassy and comrades from different parts have come here. Comrades, it is a very significant discussion. Very senior political analyst of our country is going to explain what is going on, what is the character of the present war that has been unleashed by Israel against Palestinian people. What will be the geopolitical consequences and where it is leading to, he will be explaining to all of you. My job is not to make a speech, but to make certain observations. The meeting is held in the headquarters of Communist Party of India. Our party is very consistent in supporting the Palestine cause, and we have been standing by the side of people of Palestine. We have been critical and we have been opposing the way Israel continues to have illegal occupation of Palestinian territory, not allowing the Palestinian people to have their own homeland with Jerusalem as capital. Our party has been raising all these issues in many international fora as well as at domestic level, our own national level. I myself participated in several international conferences in support of Palestinian cause. Even in one conference which was held in Iran, I was present in that meeting. So our party's position is very clear. We are with Palestinian people. We are opposed to the position taken by Israel. Coming to the present situation, we oppose the present ongoing war. Our party has demanded this war must be ended. And unprecedented what is happening today. Thousands of people have been killed so far due to the airstrikes of Israel and on the ground the attacks carried out by Israel. Among those who were killed, every human being must and will feel the pain. Children, thousands of children, they were killed. Women, they were killed. Even today, after the attack on Gaza hospital, the thousands of Palestinian people do not have adequate water, medical help, even food they do not have. The humanitarian help is also not allowed to reach Gaza. So people are passing through unimaginable sufferings. I mean the Palestinian people. Comrades, friends, when we talk of Israel-Palestine conflict, India has a position, not only CPI, our party, as a nation, we have a stated position. That position is to recognize the right of Palestinian people to have their own homeland with Jerusalem as capital. This is not new for India. Since days of Mahatma Gandhi, we have been saying this. If England belongs to English, France belongs to French, Palestine belongs to Arabs. That's what Gandhi has said. And in fact, Gandhi went to the extent of saying, war. Gandhi was a believer in God, and he believed in religion. But Gandhi said, war is against God. War is against humanity. War is against God. War is against humanity. Now, what Israel is doing is nothing but that. If Gandhi would have been alive, Gandhi would repeat the same words. That is our position, consistent position. The Indian foreign policy is one which is evolved on the basis of national consensus. Whatever may be the government, India has been continuously pursuing an independent foreign policy. That independent foreign policy formulated, evolved on the basis of national consensus. But all of a sudden, our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, went to an extent of saying, on behalf of 130 crore people, India is with Israel. Yeah, India stands by Israel. That's what he said. And it shocked the whole nation. It shocked the whole nation, whole world, how India can take such a stand. Then he tried to change that for Palestinian people, India will give all humanitarian help. This is how the present government behaves, conducts. Here, on behalf of our party, the CPI, we must assure, we must reiterate our stand. We are with the people of Palestine. We support the Palestinian cause. And we do not agree with what Israel is doing. What Israel is doing is nothing but genocide. And Netanyahu or Biden or anybody, they must be treated as war criminals. The way they conduct the war, they cooperate, coordinate among themselves to intensify the war. Today, many analysts have pointed out the war, if it continues, it may escalate into a nuclear war. If that happens, it is not the concern for West Asia or Middle East. It is concern for the whole world. That is why today the international community must come out strongly denouncing the ongoing war, denouncing the way Israel is acting against Palestinian people, and expressing our strong support and solidarity with the people of Palestine. So I don't want to continue. Comrade Naqvi is an expert on the subject. He's a great analyst. He has a great experience of many international developments of this kind. He will speak to us, and we will try to understand what is the intensity of the war that is going on today, what will be the future course, where it will lead to. All these questions he will address. So friends, comrades, with these words, I request Comrade Naqvi to give his speech.
I am grateful to you, Comrade Raja, Madam Vineet Tiwari,
Jaya Mehta, Vineet Tiwari,
and all the other friends who have flattered me by asking me to speak on this horrendous, brutal, mindless, genocidal bombardment of a hapless but a very brave people. A people who have not been. What is happening today is not new. This has happened previously also. It has been happening repeatedly. On this scale, well, in 2021, the 11-day siege of Gaza by the Israelis, then 2 missiles had been fired from this side. And they should have been prepared. The hothouse in which Palestinians live in Gaza, I have been, my wife also has been there several times. It is like from Israel into Gaza is like, firstly it's difficult to get in. It's like Lutyens, Delhi, suddenly you drop into one of the more dilapidated lanes in the old city. It's something like that. The contrast is absolutely frightful. And what is going on this time, of course, is a war to end all wars. Mr. Netanyahu, who is in deep trouble at home, is trying to convert this war into a strategy for his survival. It won't happen. it will not happen. Let me, this mindless terror that has been unleashed is eventually going to be counterproductive. वो हाथ समंदर पर लपके और ज़ेर करे तूफानों को, सूरज के गरेबां से उलझे रोशन कर दे दमखानों को, पतवार गिरे तो खुश होकर पतवार बना ले शानों को, मझधार के पाले मांझी को अंदाज़े साहिल होता है, जब जान की बाजी लगती है तब मकसद हासिल होता है। ये सुरताल गिटकरी मीड़ गमक, ढोलक तबला मृदंग बजे, खम्माज सितार पे लहराए, सारंगी पर सारंग बजे, रंगीन सुहागन रातों में शहनाई का हर रंग बजे, ये हाथ शहीदे फन होकर रक्सां सरे महफिल होता है, जब जान की बाजी लगती है तब मकसद हासिल होता है, जो कि इस वक्त फलस्तीन के लोग कर रहे हैं। और जिन्होंने ये किया 7 अक्टूबर को, ये जो इस वक्त हो रहा है, इसके 3 पर्सपेक्टिव्स में अगर आप इजाज़त दें तो मैं इनको 3 पर्सपेक्टिव्स में रखने की कोशिश करूंगा। एक तो है ग्लोबल स्ट्रेटेजिक पर्सपेक्टिव, उसमें ये क्या है, ये कहाँ फिट हो रहा है। एक है रीजनल पर्सपेक्टिव, वेस्ट एशियन, हम लोग मिडल ईस्ट कहते थे, कृष्णा मेनन नाराज होते थे कि भाई ये कृष्ण मिडल ईस्ट तो उनके लिए है, हमारे लिए वेस्ट एशिया। और एक है लोकल इजरायली पर्सपेक्टिव। लोकल इजरायली पर्सपेक्टिव की तरफ तो मैंने थोड़ा सा इशारा ऑलरेडी किया है। सख्त परेशानी में है नेतन्याहू की सरकार। इस किस्म का राइट विंग का सपोर्ट जो वो ले रहे हैं, जो हम और आप सोच भी नहीं सकते। यानी आप हिटलर को बुला के लाइए कि ये तुम हमारे कैबिनेट में आ जाओ, ये स्थिति है इस वक्त। लोग नाराज हैं क्योंकि एक्सेसिव right-wingism people, and he has gone to justify and perpetuate the system by seeking to upturn the position of the Supreme Court of Israel, so that becomes subservient to the executive. And people are out of the streets. There have been protests and protests and protests every week. This was the internal situation, and Hamas is not an inanimate object. They were looking at it. The regional perspective is the following. Relations between Saudi Arabia and the Americans go back to 1933. Yes, there was a Balfour Declaration, but there was no Palestinian, there was no Jewish state. 1933. But the most important date is 1945, after the war ends. Second World War. Shah Saud and Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, on a ship called SS Quincy, met in the Suez Canal, and the dialogue between them, it was like bartering away the world. Now you and I have decided how the world will run. It's worth reading that conversation between them. It was as deep as that. In 1943, when Lord Halifax was the British ambassador to Washington, he and Roosevelt, there's a picture of them having a sort of a ruler, a foot rule, and Roosevelt is showing Halifax, the British ambassador, who later came here as Viceroy, by the way, showing him, Saudi oil is ours. Iraqi oil we share. Iranian oil is yours. But Saudi oil is entirely ours. It was 1943. Unfortunately, there are certain details that we have chosen to forget. That was exactly the date when the Indian agent in Washington was Sir Girija Shankar Bajpayee. The house, which now is where the Indian ambassador lives in Washington, was bought by Sir Girija Shankar, then as agent of the British establishment in Washington DC in 1943. This exactly is the date when the ships were turned around, the ones that were going to Calcutta, which led to the great famine of Bengal. ये है. अब उसमें ज़्यादा न जाऊंगा, because उसमें बहुत से ज़ख्म, scabs खुल जाएंगे. Because as you know, Sir Girija became the first Secretary General of the Indian Foreign Office. People asked him, "Bhai, Jawaharlal, what is this?" He said, then he was serving the British, now he will serve us. Anyway, I've digressed here for this little anecdote. But the important point is that the relationship between Saudi Arabia and America goes back in a very cavernous and I remember when I was at Princeton, I used to ask people, "Bhai, Saudis, how can the Saudis get away with so much?" They said, "Saeed, we can't touch the Saudis. You don't know the agreements that are there between us and the Saudis." All right. Now I'm coming to the sorrowful bit. If that indeed is the depth of the relationship, how has Saudi Arabia, under Chinese auspices, jumped that ship and shaken hands with Iran? Somewhere there is a clue to things that are happening today. Why have the Saudis jumped? Because they have seen the writing on the wall. They see a shrinking West, a G7 which is shrinking. Look at the economic variables of all the G7 countries who are cited by Israel as the international community. Shrinking economies, collapsing. They have just been able to find a speaker in the United States, a declining power. I'm not saying it out of any malice, but this is the objective situation. That Saudis saw that this apron strings can be snapped because there is much more towards BRICS. Already it is from 5 to 11 and many applications are lying there. This is where the future is. Now, Saudis have seen the future and changed course. Now, alas, that option, they have gone and joined the global south. But that option is not available to the Israelis. That option is not available to the Israelis. And the Israelis can only survive. As Israel was always an unsinkable aircraft carrier for the United States of America and for the West. It is American exceptionalism and globally and Israeli exceptionalism regionally was a function of American power. But if American power is declining, it must be extremely unnerving for the Israelis. It must be extremely unnerving for the Israelis. Without that power standing there, is imperialism going to find Israel in a redundancy bracket? You see, it is there so long as imperialism needs it. If imperialism does not need it and cannot sustain it, it will not. Look at the back and forth statements made by Biden. And don't forget Biden. So this I have given you briefly the internal Israeli situation. Regional situation is this, that everyone is now looking towards BRICS. They are abandoning that which has been the world order. The hegemonic world order is now over. Now we are in a multipolar world. The hegemon is gone. If no one, your newspapers will not tell you that. But in September 2022, Emmanuel Macron invited all his diplomats and top brass and officials to the Élysée Palace. In 2022, he said, look, the 4,000 years of Western hegemony on the world order is coming to an end. Let us prepare for the future. These are the realities. Now let us look at I've given you a regional perspective briefly. There may be questions, I'll elaborate. They have given you local Israel. Now the global perspective. Global perspective is, let's go back to August 2021. What happened in August 2021? After 20 years of occupation of Afghanistan, the Americans left in the kind of mess which is absolutely unseen in the annals of world history. A great power leaving after 20 full years of occupation. Nothing to show for itself. Even stout friends like India virtually holding on to the American. Even they were shaken and they pulled out. What is going on? That was the first, not the first, but a very decisive indication of the altered global situation. Now, when the hegemon hears morning, evening, and afternoon, declining America, declining America, declining America, declining West, it is not music to them. It is not music to them. The entire Ukraine operation was launched to redeem and recover lost prestige. How? Well, this matter has been in the works for a long time. The westward expansion of NATO. From the days of Gorbachev, there were undertakings and promises by the West that we shall not move an inch to the West. Then all the countries of Eastern Europe that you know are members of NATO. At the Bucharest summit of NATO in 2008, when George W. Bush was the president, he again floated Georgia and Ukraine to be members of NATO. Putin was present there, and he said that is a red line we shall never ever allow to be crossed. It was said in so many words in Bucharest. And this continued, and I do not want to go into the catalogue of what Victoria Nuland and her four-letter words for the European Union, which became history just a few days ago. She is the Deputy Secretary of State, in charge, very hawkish, in charge of Ukraine. So Ukraine, what was it? George Kennan, one of the great thinkers of international affairs, one of the great founders of American foreign policy, he said then that these people who have brought about a revolution, you're poking them in the eyes, there will be a reaction. Don't move west. He said that. John Mersheimer, professor of politics in Chicago University. Today, you open YouTube and you'll have him, and you'll have hundreds of others saying, this war was imposed by us, namely the West, on them. But what has the media said? The media said that on one morning, a fellow called Putin became mad. He is a brute, and he is a murderer, and he is Hitler plus, and he is this, and he is that, and he just, Arey bhai, you were provoking him since 1991. What could he have done? And he stopped you. And so that was, in other words, Putin was provoked into a war which the West wanted. They thought that this way, if Putin's nose can be rubbed in the dust, then there will be a recovery for the hegemon. There was further anxiety because on the 24th of February, this special operation started. Earlier that month, they had met, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin had met, and they had in fact signed an agreement, a 40-page document which should be read every day, and a friendship with no end. Exactly the kind of language that Shah Saud and Roosevelt had signed in 1945. 2 yards ahead of that a friendship. Now, ek na shud do shud. We were thinking of managing China separately. Now they are together, and now, all right, then let us settle with him. We shall be. I remember John Simpson. John Simpson is a very senior correspondent of the BBC. Him going around in all the Southeast Asian countries and saying China will not like a friend who becomes a liability. Now, they were hoping that Putin will become a liability, and therefore then the Chinese will jack them. Has not happened. Just now, on the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road, they were there again. So the Kaya Palat, what they had thought that they would be able to completely, what do they hold against Putin? I'll tell you, very simple. What they hold against Putin is that we who had brought down the Soviet Union to its knees, this chap has built it up into a power yet again with nuclear arsenal superior to ours. There he is. Now it jolts them. So they tried this attempt and that has failed. So the American failure in the Ukraine war, the war is being lost, not our papers will not tell you, because I'll digress a bit and explain to you about the media also. Our papers will not tell you, their media will not tell you, even their people do not know, you see, that what is going on. So, you provoked him into a war and you advertised, the propaganda was, he is a brute and for no rhyme or reason, poor people of the most corrupt nation on earth, the most, by their own testimony, with this new neo-Nazis and Berenda and all these people, their heroes, are completely terrible. But at the moment they've become all right. They are all cleansed in milk and honey, and they are the wonderful people, and he is brutalizing. Okay, now let's come to the Hamas. Kya hai? Unprovoked. He came and brutalized the... अरे भाई 75 साल से तुम क्या कर रहे हो उनके साथ? वो नहीं है. It's not in the equation. Dabka is not in the equation. Your continuous, you having caged them in a ghetto is not in the equation. How dare you? How dare you do this? And what they have done has taken the great Israeli intelligence, infallible intelligence, they have been shaken. There are two aspects to this being shaken. They have been shaken because, if I'm exceeding my time, do let me know. If they have been shaken for two reasons. A, because their intelligence has never been as bad as this. Can you imagine Palestinians flying, taking off on those, what are those gliders, on paragliding into and no one has seen them. I don't believe this. You see, how do I know? How do I know that the army is not divided on the issue of Mr. Netanyahu? How do I know? You know, these are, after all, it's an army of conscripts. How do I know? How? Intelligence. I mean, it's so obvious. And they knew this side, and that is why they fired on the 7th of October. Now, what is happening is a lot of regional powers will get in. Oh, it is going to be expand into a war. Apparently, they made a probe at some end. They left their tank and went back. That is one story. that they came in, made a probe, but then they discovered something कि भाई यहाँ resistance है, वो टैंक को छोड़ के वापस चले गए। ये ग्राउंड ऑफेंसिव आज होगा, कल होगा, परसों होगा, मेरे ख्याल में ये शायद नहीं होगा। I don't see a ground offensive. I see everybody, and after all, the Chinese were able to put the Saudis and the Iranians together with the help of Oman and Iraq. Something must be going on. Something is going on under the table, some kind of a formulation. And if this formulation is this time, now I'm going to tell you something that after which either my credibility will be zero or it will be sky high. This is the last operation of this scale in that part of the world. They simply do not have the wherewithal. The Americans do not have the wherewithal to stand behind Israel for its excessive. It cannot. So therefore, this is on this scale. Now, फिर इसके बाद सुबह है और सुबह 9, शायद इसके बाद अब जो होगा ये बहुत ही गजबनाक हमला है इन लोगों का। लेकिन इसके बाद देखिए एक चीज याद रखिए, कॉमरेड, you will remember in 1973, 1967 war, they took over Golan Heights, all the West Bank and everything. But during the Yom Kippur War of 1973, you know, the propaganda went one side, but the Arab combined gave them a nose, gave them a bleeding nose. What happened immediately after that? Quadrupling of Arab oil prices. You have the Arab sheikhs of Arabi and their pockets were bulging with petrodollars. Anyone who was in England in those days would see Marks and Spencer's had it written in Arabic. The Savoy and Dorchester, their key hotels, had sheikhs of Araby filling them. There was no space for anything. The Antichrist had entered the citadel. Now they did nothing then, but they started preparing for things. What kind of preparation? The publishing houses, very controlled under what is known as the Jewish lobby in America. The publishing industry is very much in their hands. They gave massive advances for books like Among the Believers by V.S. Naipaul, Vidya Naipaul, to puncture, and Among the Believers, and in Iran as that, which is was V.S. Naipaul's work. Big advances. And the biggest, but V.S. Naipaul happens to be, they wanted a Muslim to get up and throw a bomb of this nature. They discovered 9 crore rupees advance for satanic verses. That was then. It was at that stage. And then further, very soon thereafter, Samuel Huntington was given a clash of civilization. Khel Khatam. Francis Fukuyama had already declared that in the end of history, one system has won, the other has been defeated, history is over. Now, Thomas Friedman wrote another book. He says the earth is flat. Now there's going to be globalization controlled by the Americans from the top, and everything is hunky-dory. Then as an act of God, in 2008, one of their greatest banks, Lehman Brothers, collapsed. That signaled the inherent structural weaknesses in the whole capitalist project. That is, and it continued. So when George Bush asked for the movement of NATO towards Russia, the sole superpower moment had not yet passed. Sole superpower moment had not yet passed. It passed after him. What was the sole superpower moment? Soviet Union collapsed in 1991-92. Berlin Wall fell in 1989. And one system lost, the other system became sole superpower was. And then came George Bush, and then, as I've told you, it began to slide, and Lehman Brothers was a watershed. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the picture as I see it. I see a ray, a silver lining in this great, horrendous tragedy that we are watching. Yes, people are having to pay with their blood. Yes, people are going without. Yes, hospitals are without medicine. But then on the other hand, for the first time, the Israelis are living in tents also. Ye bhi yaad rakho. Israelis are also in the tents. And they say, now we'll have to, because this place is now full, we have to build a tented city. We know there are details. The attack is not so much on Gaza. They want to sort out everything in the West Bank. All that is, but to sort those things out on your terms, you need to have the power which in the foreseeable future you are unlikely to have. This is, the global order has changed, and the global order is going to dictate both the policies at the global level, at the regional level, and so therefore, at the end of it, of course, zulm phir zulm hai, बढ़ता है तो मिट जाता है. जुल्म फिर जुल्म है, बढ़ता है तो मिट जाता है. खून फिर खून है, टपकेगा तो जम जाएगा. खाके सहरा पे जमे या कफे कातिल पे जमे, तेगे बेदाग पे या लाशे बिस्मिल पे जमे. खून दीवाना है, दामन पे लपक सकता है. शोले तुंद है, खिरमन पे जुल्म की बात ही क्या, जुल्म की औकात ही क्या. जुल्म बस जुल्म है, आगाज से अंजाम तलक. खून फिर खून है, 100 शक्ल बदल सकता है. ऐसी शक्लें के मिटाओ तो मिटाए न बने, ऐसे नारे के दबाओ तो दबाए न बने, ऐसे शोले के बुझाओ तो बुझाए न बने. ये मुझे तो ये दिखाई दे रहा है दोस्तों. आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.
No, that's what now it's going to be 6:45.
So let's have
Yeah, we will have some 3 questions. Yeah, because we cannot prolong for more time. So you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I have a very basic but very general question. As an observer of geopolitics, I have some inkling, but who really trained Hamas? How they did such a planning? How they got all that resources that it toppled the long, long period of the Israeli attack?
That's it. There has been plan. I told you in 2021, missiles were fired. They were preparing. A fellow called Muhammad Daif. Suddenly after that, 221 was called the Operation Jerusalem Sword. That after this, Daif disappeared. And for 2 years, no one saw him and his other compatriot, whose name I'm forgetting. They disappeared. Then they appeared just now, and they said, now we've done it. So they were operating, they were working behind the scenes for 2 years. So this planning was going on, and of course, look, the Hezbollah is very much in it. Hezbollah is in it. The Iranians would be in it. देखिए, शिव जी की जटाओं से गंगा बहती है. तो ये जो है, ये शिव जी की जटाएं से अगर गंगा निकल के आती है, तो ये जो इनके पास कुव्वत आई है, ये कहीं से आ रही है ना. तो कोई ना कोई समझौता है, और वो बहुत ही होशियारी से, कोई उन्होंने हाथ अपना दिखाया नहीं है. Abhi, they have not entered in any big way. And so this is why if I'm proved wrong, I'll be very disappointed with myself. But I personally think that this is the turning point in the history of that region. The limits to power is something that somehow we thought there are no limits to Israeli power, just as we thought there are no limits to American power. Then you saw limits to power of the American power. You saw in Korea, you saw in Vietnam, you saw in Iraq, you saw in Afghanistan. And they thought, it's amazing how foolish of them, but they thought by cross-border terrorism, they would be able to topple and replace Bashar al-Assad. They couldn't. He's still there. You started this in 2011. He's still there. He's troubled. You've destroyed his country. True. But he is still there. How did you, for the heck of you, imagine that when a person like Bashar al-Assad, by cross-border terrorism, was not toppled, how are you going to topple a person like Putin, with a nation like, with all the time zones in the country, in the world? How are you going to topple by feeding some supplies to an extremely incompetent regime in Kiev? So therefore, it was badly conceived from the very beginning. And now how? The Americans now have to pull their chestnuts out of two crises. Ukraine and here. How they do it? Because elections are around the corner, and very soon it will have all the decisions that are taken will have a bearing on his whether to begin with, will he get the nomination? I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen him myself stumble and fumble and fall down and every now and again have what they call a senior moment, forgetting. So, will he get the nomination? I don't know.
Okay. Freedom here and talk in Vietnam to say I was not able to speak. This is the Biden's.
Okay. Second.
I have a question. Now, this decline of the West has been speculated since Bengal, 1913, 18. So, it is happening. Question is, what can we do? Something is happening in economic terms, I agree with you. But it's happening very slowly. And the question is, what can we do to accelerate it? And one aspect which you did not touch upon is the soft power of the West, which it got through colonialism. And that is a very important aspect of its prestige, which if demolished, will completely demoralize the West. And now this is happening, and especially in South Africa,
one is writing anything about anything here. I'm sorry to tell you that. This is a very pathetic state of affairs. I have been saying for the last 50 years, those who are aware would be aware, that unless you see the world with your own eyes, you will not have a seat at the high table. You cannot be passive recipients of images doled to you by the former imperial colonial powers and call them, and your entire intelligentsia, its mind is made up on that basis. You are absolutely right. Let me give you a brief history of that, very brief. You're talking about the hegemony of Western media. Western media controls everything. I mean, you see, when the Soviet Union fell, along with it came a certain gentleman called Rupert Murdoch. Complete Murdochization of the global media took place. Once upon a time, the Le Monde in Paris used to have its own point of view. But after the Murdochization process, the editorial in the New York Times and the editorial in La Figaro and the editorial in La Repubblica were roughly more or less the same. You see, there was a complete and total uniformity. It happened like this, sir. After the 1991-92 fall of communism in Russia and Soviet Union, the West wanted, it was both a moment of victory and a moment of great anxiety. Victory because we have defeated a system. That's what they thought. Anxiety that now that we have defeated them, the world will clamor to withdraw NATO. What is the use of NATO? The West and the Europeans will not need NATO. NATO was created as a bulwark against the Soviet Union. No, said Mrs. Thatcher, and no, said her buddy, this Bush Senior. They contrived a situation like a world war, which was the Operation Desert Storm in 1992. Now, if you remember, in those days, Mitterrand, as president of France, was very reluctant. He was a clever chap. But he was browbeaten, and even he joined in. That is when, any one of you of that vintage, you would remember that was the first time, and I happened to be there, so I saw it. For the first time, a man called Peter Arnett of the CNN brought a live war into our drawing rooms. That was the beginning of the global media. The project, we have won one war, we have won the ideological war, and now to carry forward, we need the media in the vanguard. And that media was invented on that day. The whole question of Saddam Hussein and his occupation of Kuwait is all shrouded in mystery. People have not inquired into it. It is, how did it happen? How did he become so mad that he went and occupied Kuwait when he knew there would be... No, he was lured again into it. How? April Gillespie was the American ambassador in Baghdad. She visits the president, that is Saddam Hussein. She tells him that, look, we are not bothered about your regional Arab affairs. We are only bilateral, America, you, oil, etc., etc. He got the signal, because in those days they were having problems about Kuwaitis moving into Iraqi areas for oil. So they thought this is a signal from the Americans. It was a clear signal was given that if you teach Kuwait a lesson, it is your business. We are not in it. The minute he got in is precisely what they were waiting for. That gave them the excuse to launch Operation Desert Storm, so that, and all it was by all the countries, they united exactly like a third world war situation. We are together, NATO is required. Three things were there. One, they were worried that NATO will now be pushed out. No, NATO is required. Secondly, when NATO, the one thing that worried Europeans more than anything else was that the fall of the Soviet Union had, of course, given us victory, but it had also reunited Germany. And Germany is the big ogre in their minds. Now Germany is coming, Axis is coming, and Germany and Japan. You know, this happened again during the Bosnian War, when Genscher went and recognized the collapse. Genscher recognized, and my God, they say he's broken ranks. Axis is coming. So the anxiety about Germany was always there. The first Secretary General of the NATO, what was his name? It'll come to me. He said the purpose of NATO is to keep Germany down, to keep Russia out, Germany down, and Americans on top. That is the purpose of NATO. Russia out, Germans down, and Americans on top. So these were the anxieties at that moment. That is when this global media was invented, and the global media, the idea was that it will carry forward globalization. Unfortunately, it got bogged down in covering of various post 9/11 wars. Now when wars take place, the first casualty is the truth. So the same parade of character, Lise Doucet, Nick Robertson, Christiana Manpur, Wolf Blitzer, paraded again and again to propaganda for American war effort from one war to the other. The result was the total collapse of the credibility of the Western media.
Huh?
Let us take the. Sir, one question. What will be the future of Abraham Accords after this, and what is the significance of Iran-Saudi peace deal that was brokered by China in the current equations?
That deal that was brokered by China is continuing. I don't see any threat to it. One argument was that this action of Hamas on the 7th of October was timed so that because the Saudis and the Israelis are coming together. I think that is an erroneous, because that would imply that the Saudis are about to unclasp the Iranian hands and clasp Israel. That would not have happened. What would have happened is that yes, we shall proceed with Jerusalem only if X number of things on the Palestinian front are completed, because we are not going to unclasp the hand of Iran, nor are we going to go against the street temper of the street in the Arab world and the world. You see? So yes, so that continues. Abrahamic Accords may in fact be accelerated, but with a different purpose. Abrahamic Accords were supposed to divide the Arab world. But now, if they proceed, they will be carrying the consensus of the entire. This is my perspective of 10, 20, 30 years from now. That is what will happen.
Friends, due to constraint of time, we will conclude the session because questions will arise and answers will be given. Again, questions will arise. So we cannot conclude the meeting. So excuse me. I thank Comrade Naqvi for his wonderful and enlightening, very informative speech, and also his replies to questions which were raised. And in fact, he explained what will be the implications at global level, at regional level, finally on the relationship between Israel and Palestine.
Vinny wants to give thanks.
Huh?
Vinny wants to give thanks.
This he explained, and questions were also put, and he answered. Comrades, we should understand, after the financial meltdown, the imperialist powers hoped to have a unipolar world. That did not happen. Now we are in a multipolar world. In the multipolar world, the right-wing political ideologies are coming to have some kind of coordinated work. Why US imperialists are keen to have war in this region? Why US is giving all-out support to Israel to attack and kill Palestinians? Why it is happening? What happened between Russia, Ukraine, everybody knows. Here, Palestine, Israel, and international community has a view on Israel-Palestinian relationship. When Mr. Arafat was alive, when PLO was active, talks were held. What happened to Oslo talks? What is the response of US for Oslo talks? Does US respect any international opinion? United Nations issue was discussed. They proposed two-state solution. Two-state solution. Palestinians can have their own homeland with Jerusalem as capital. Why UN is not respected by US? United Nations. In the given situation, United Nations is supposed to reflect the international concern, international opinion. UN Secretary General spoke out. UN Secretary General spoke out on this issue. And even in European Parliament, the Irish MP spoke out criticizing what Israel is doing. So there are international concerns, but US is not ready to respect and act in accordance to the concerns expressed by international community. What is happening in our own country? The right-wing politicians, how they conduct, how they articulate, we should understand. Israel-Palestinian conflict is getting worse, and Prime Minister expresses full support to Israel on behalf of 130 crore people of India. And the RSS chief, Mohan Bhagwat, he refers to cultural Marxists, I don't know how many of you cultural Marxists, he's sitting here in front of me. Cultural Marxists, they create hatred, they divide the society, and they pit one section against another. In Israeli-Palestinian conflict, who has done this? Pitting Israel against Palestinians, Palestinians against Israel. If the United Nations solution was accepted, things would have been different. So there are many questions we need to discuss. We need to apply our mind. In the coming days, situation will be more complex and complicated, because one thing is clear: why NATO has become active. Capitalism is in deep crisis and the military industrial complexes are hoping to have better business, and Israel-Palestinian war means it is military industrial complexes in US and other Western countries. They want business, and if we have some problem in our region, again they hope to exploit and plunder the world. This is what we should understand. So now Comrade Naqvi tried his best to enlighten us on the present Israel-Palestinian conflict, and he has also made us to look towards the implications at different levels, at global level, regional level, and at their own level. And as India, what we should do, our country has a stated position, and we should stand up in support of Palestinian people, and we should condemn the war waged by Israel on Palestinian people. Israel cannot do this, and if US supports Israel, India cannot side with them, and we must be very clear. We must be very clear. And I am telling you, Israel, America will be together. Both Netanyahu or Biden or somebody comes tomorrow, they will remain together. And it happens in the case of Cuba. There is embargo against Cuba. There was a resolution in United Nations. It was debated and it was put on vote. Only 2 countries opposed the UN resolution against the embargo on Cuba. Which are the 2 countries? United States of America, number 1, Israel, number 2. Israel, number 2. I was very much present in the UN General Assembly when the vote was taken. I spoke for India. So we should understand why Israel and America continue to remain together and not listening to the world opinion, not respecting the concerns expressed by the international community. So as Indians, as people of India, we should stand by the side of justice. Palestinian people, they have their own right to have their homeland with Jerusalem as capital. That's what they have been saying. And Comrade Naqvi explained 1948 how Israel after Second World War, how even after that 1950 when Nehru was Prime Minister, Nehru took a very independent position. We should understand. Nehru was Prime Minister in 1950. He took a very independent position. He did not succumb to the pressures. He did not side with Israel. And India has been pursuing such an independent position, standing by the side of justice and people who are fighting for their rights and freedom. So we should continue our position, and as CPI, I speak for my party, our party, we will continue to pursue this line with all consistence, and let us move forward. This much I can say. Now Comrade Vinny will give thanks.
No, I have nothing much to say, and because of our guest audience from China and Palestinian embassy, I did not interfere. Otherwise, I could have asked Saeed Naqvi ji to speak in Hindi, and my original idea was to put that poster also in Hindi so that he will also speak in Hindi. And if you listen to his Hindi, which is Hindustani, it's wonderful. It's like music you are listening, the classical music. So I request you, sir, to repeat your speech in Hindi, but in another lecture. And so people will enjoy and learn, basically both. And I thank you all, first of all of you who have come to listen to us, and my friends who have been helping me in organizing this event, Rakesh, Dhirendra, Shijo, I thank them all, and also I thank specifically, especially Aruna ji, who had come on my request to be with us today. And Aruna ji, we had a good time together once in Indore also. So I thank you all on behalf of Joshi Adhikari Institute, and we request you to come again and be a part of the other important meetings where such issues are being discussed. And I promise you that next month we will hold a meeting again on the same issue, and you will have to speak in Hindustani then. Thank you all. Thank you.